went abroad with my husband to treat his medical condition, only for him to sleep with an African woman. When I caught him, he sent Jasmine away and explained frantically, "Sarah, it was a momentary lapse in judgment. I just wanted to test if I was truly beyond help. She was just a prop, we didn't have physical intimacy." I was understanding, knowing he had suffered an injury saving me, and I forgave his temporary experimenting. And I truly believed he wouldn't be attracted to a woman whose only white feature was her teeth. 3 years later, a boy who looked strikingly like him went viral online because of his battle with cancer. Coincidentally, I discovered that he had given all his property to this child named Marcus. Only then did I realize he had lied to me. I insisted on a divorce, but he imprisoned me instead. "Sarah, divorce is absolutely out of the question. And Marcus is my own child. I can't stand by and do nothing. Once Jasmine and I have our daughter and she saves Marcus, I'll cut ties with Jasmine." So, he was expecting a second child with Jasmine, yet he had no interest in me whatsoever. As the Miller family celebrated Robert Miller having both a son and a daughter, I took out the divorce agreement he had signed years ago and made a phone call, arrange a fake death for me. My new life begins as Mrs. Stone. "As you wish, Mrs. Stone." Hanging up the phone, the laughter and chatter from downstairs reached my ears again. "Rob, look at Chloe's eyes and brows, she looks even more like you did as a child than Marcus. And she's so fair and tender. Not a bit like her mother's dark skin. She's adorable at first sight." Evelyn Miller's words were echoed by everyone in the Miller family. Robert Miller seemed to have forgotten that both Marcus and Chloe were names I had picked for our children. I waited for him to get better, waited for him to create a life with me. I waited for 3 long years, only to find out he had fathered a son and a daughter with another woman. And he had even used the names I'd picked. How utterly ridiculous. The doorknob turned, and Jasmine looked at me uncertainly. "Sarah, are you coming down to celebrate with us?" Having lost to such a dark-skinned woman, even though I accepted my fate, I didn't give her a pleasant look. "Get out." In an instant, Jasmine's eyes turned red. "Sarah, I know you don't like me, but my children will only recognize you as their mother. Aren't you going down to build a relationship with them?" Her fluent English, clearly carrying Robert Miller's distinct accent, was accompanied by undisguised smugness and provocation in her eyes. I could hardly imagine how much time Robert Miller had spent with Jasmine to make her English so standard. Looking at her now, aside from her dark skin, I couldn't find any flaws. She had a hot, curvaceous figure, and her damp eyes, when she looked at me, were soft and expressive. No wonder Robert Miller had fallen for her. "No thanks. I have no interest in being a mother to someone else's children. And stop acting in front of me." I told her to leave and got up to close the door. Jasmine suddenly reached out to stop me, and a piercing scream followed immediately. Robert Miller and his family of 4, who were carrying the children upstairs, saw the scene of me slamming the door on Jasmine's hand. Evelyn Miller rushed over, glared at me, carefully pulled Jasmine's hand, and began fussing over her. Marcus charged like a little tank, rushing over and biting my hand. "Bad woman. You can't bully my mom." Robert Miller's thin lips were pressed together. Although he didn't blame me directly, the cold look in his eyes as he watched me being bitten said it all. My hand stung from the bite, and without hesitation, I raised my hand and slapped Marcus across the face. He let go and wailed loudly, causing the daughter in Robert T. Miller's arms, Chloe, to start crying too. Jasmine's tears streamed down instantly. "Rob, it's all my fault for upsetting Sarah. I shouldn't have come here. Maybe I should just take the kids and leave." Arthur Miller, who had been watching coldly, immediately took Marcus into his arms to comfort him, then turned to me with a frown and snapped, "If you weren't useful, we would have kicked you out long ago. A useless wife who can't lay eggs, how dare you hurt my grandson?" Ever since Robert Miller was injured protecting me, Arthur and Evelyn Miller hadn't liked me at all. But knowing their son was injured and finding another wife would be difficult, they had reluctantly accepted me as their daughter-in-law. In the past, snobbish and looked down on everyone, they would never have approved of a foreigner like Jasmine, who had no status or background. But now, Jasmine had given them a grandson and a granddaughter, both miraculously inheriting Robert Miller's good genes. They practically worshipped Jasmine. Even Robert Miller spoke to me with a look of disappointment. Sarah, what are you doing? It's the children's first day home, are you going to be so petty? Don't you know, Jasmine pitted us for not having children and willingly offered to let you raise her own children, and she even said without complaint that she would stay here to be your maid? Look what you've done. Since you can't tolerate them, Jasmine will raise the children for now. She'll stay at the family estate with my parents. Don't go to the old house unnecessarily. With that, Robert Miller carefully comforted the crying Chloe, then went to comfort Jasmine and Marcus. He even planned to change the children's last names to Miller and have them officially recognized as part of the family soon. Jasmine smiled through her tears instantly but then looked at me timidly. But Sarah, ignore her. This is settled. Arthur Miller made the final call, taking his family toward the family estate. Watching them leave, they looked every bit like a warm family. I withdrew my gaze and looked at the large wedding photo on the wall. In the picture, Robert Miller had his arm around my waist, his eyes filled with tenderness. Back then, we thought we could grow old together. Now, all I could do was open the closet and pack my luggage. Clothes were folded one by one into the suitcase, just like my love for Robert Miller over the years, being packed away and sealed off bit by bit. Is Sarah going to follow them to the family estate? I advise you not to waste your effort. Jasmine stood before me, no longer the pitiful little rabbit she had been moments ago. Did you know? For the past 3 years, every time Rob said he was going overseas for treatment, he was coming to see me. She pulled out a delicate box from her bag, neatly stacked with over 1,000 plane tickets. My heart sank sharply, as if someone had clenched it tightly. She pulled out a stack of tickets and waved them in front of me. Every time, he couldn't wait to get to me and spend the night together like newlyweds. Even though my heartache had turned to numbness, seeing that thick stack of tickets, my shattered heart still couldn't help but feel a sharp pang of pain for a moment. Before Robert Miller left each time, he would kiss my forehead and gently tell me to wait for him to come back after treatment, so we could finally have our own children. It turned out his supposed treatment was fathering children with another woman. Seeing my downcast expression, Jasmine leaned closer and continued to taunt me. Rob said he couldn't get aroused even if you stood naked in front of him. But if I just beckon, he'll drop everything and fly to me. She showed me their text messages. All she had to do was send a racy photo, and Robert Miller couldn't wait to buy a ticket. I shoved her away, my chest heaving. The tickets scattered everywhere, each one concrete evidence of Robert Miller's infidelity. I bent down to pick them up and see them clearly, but Jasmine stepped on them. Don't look. It's too humiliating. A woman living like this might as well be dead. Her cackling laughter was particularly grating. I straightened up, forcing back the stinging in my eyes, and raised my hand to slap her. But she just covered her face and walked indifferently towards the wedding photo. Wouldn't it be more fitting to hang Rob and my wedding photo here? What do you think, Mrs. Miller? I watched coldly as she took down the frame and viciously smashed it, unmoved. It was something I was going to throw away anyway, so she could smash it if she wanted. Only I didn't expect her to suddenly fall onto the broken glass, rolling around in the shards without a care for her image. Cuts quickly appeared on her arms and legs. Sarah! What are you doing? Robert Miller's enraged roar came from Jasmine's mobile phone. Only then did I realize she had started a video call at some point. The phone pointed right at us. Jasmine's tears streamed down. She held up her bleeding arm and sobbed to the camera. Rob, I just wanted to come back and explain properly to Sarah, to make sure she wasn't thinking of doing something drastic, but she hit me, and then she smashed your wedding photo with me. Robert Miller's face was grim. Sarah Bennett. Are you insane? Less than 10 minutes later, the mansion door was violently pushed open. Robert Miller rushed in, didn't even glance at me, and immediately knelt beside Jasmine, carefully examining her wounds. Does it hurt? He asked softly. That familiar tenderness no longer belonged only to me. Jasmine sobbed, shaking her head, accidentally revealing more wounds. Robert Miller frowned in distress, stood up, and went to get the first aid kit. As he passed me, he finally looked at me, his yes, as cold as if I were a stranger. He turned back to treat Jasmine's wounds, his movements gentle as if she were a precious treasure. Once, he had treated a small scrape on my knee with the same gentleness. Back then, I had laughed at him for making a fuss. Apologized to her. After treating the wounds, Robert Miller stood up and ordered me. I looked at the shattered wedding photo on the floor. Our smiling faces in the fragments were shattered, just like our marriage, beyond putting back together. Why should I apologize? Because she deliberately smashed our wedding photo? Or because she showed off your 1,000+ plane tickets? Robert Miller's face changed, and he looked at Jasmine. Jasmine's tears streamed down, sobbing uncontrollably. I showed Sarah the tickets just to tell her how hard you were trying to get better, so you could give her happiness. Robert Miller didn't blame her. He just turned back to me with a complex look in his eyes. Sarah, let's talk. I didn't want to talk. I wearily handed him the divorce agreement again. Robert Miller stared at the agreement in my hand, then violently ripped the paper to shreds. Sarah Bennett, you will not leave me. Even in death, you will be a ghost of the Miller family. He thought this was the divorce agreement he had signed. The shredded paper fluttered like snowflakes. He turned to Jasmine and said sharply, you go back first. Jasmine's eyes widened, her face full of disbelief. Rob, I'm injured. Get out! Robert Miller's roar startled Jasmine, and she trembled, getting up reluctantly to leave. Before she left, she cast me a resentful look. As soon as the door closed, Robert Miller grabbed my wrist and roughly threw me onto the bed. I struggled to get up, but he pinned me down. Aren't you just jealous that I slept with Jasmine? I'll satisfy you right now. He roughly tore open my collar. I struggled fiercely. Ut couldn't stop his assault. Shame and anger made me beg him to let go, but he still ignored me. Time passed minute by minute. His expression shifted from anger to embarrassment, finally settling into deep frustration. He released his hold on me, and I quickly pulled the blanket over myself. Watching his dejected back sitting on the edge of the bed, a bitter sense of irony welled up in my heart. Jasmine was right, even if I stood naked in front of him, he couldn't get aroused. Robert Miller suddenly pulled out his phone, opened a video, and held it out to me. Sarah, can you learn from her? On the screen was a short video of him and Jasmine being intimate. That was a side of Robert Miller I had never seen before, wild and unfamiliar. In our 5 years of marriage, even before his injury, he had always been gentle and restrained in bed. I thought that was just his personality. It turned out he was just not interested in me. My stomach churned, and I smashed his phone. Disgusting. Get out! Robert Miller picked up his phone, looked at me with a complex expression, and finally left the room in silence. I curled up in bed, trembling all over. Before long, my phone vibrated. It was a message from Jasmine. Even if you humble yourself and serve Rob, his body will always favor mine. Don't humiliate yourself, Mrs. Miller. The message was accompanied by a photo of Robert Miller and her intimately entangled in a car, looking impatient. I didn't reply. I just dialed that number again. Speed up the plan. I need to leave as soon as possible. The man's voice on the other end replied briefly, 3 days from now. Everything is arranged. Hanging up the phone, I stared at the ceiling, tears silently falling. This marriage had finally reached its end. Unsure when I had fallen asleep, I was woken by Robert Miller's frantic voice. He grabbed my wrist and dragged me out. Come to the hospital. With me quickly. Marcus's ear is deaf from your slap, and his condition has worsened. I froze, then sneered. What does that have to do with me? Have you no conscience? Robert Miller's eyes were bloodshot. He's only 3. He finally stabilized his condition with Chloe's cord blood, and now it's worsened because of you. He urgently needs a bone marrow transplant. You're his legal mother, and you're a match. If you don't save him, who will? His legal mother? And a matching donor? I didn't know when he had secretly done the matching test on me, or how many more things he was hiding from me. I forcefully shook off his hand. He's your illegitimate child with someone else. Why should I save him? Robert Miller suppressed his rage, his eyes red as he pleaded with me. As long as you save Marcus, I promise to find a way to satisfy you afterward. Even at this moment, he didn't know why I was angry. He didn't have to love me, he didn't have to touch me, and he could have divorced me. But he shouldn't have betrayed me by wanting it all and humiliating me. Exhaustion and powerlessness washed over me. Ignoring his pleas, I slammed the door shut with all my might. Just then, his phone rang. He answered it, temporarily left me alone, and left in a hurry. But I knew that even if Robert Miller left me alone, Arthur and Evelyn Miller wouldn't. Even if they said they wanted me gone, they still needed me as Mrs. Miller for appearances. In their eyes, Jasmine was merely a tool for childbirth. If I stayed, I would forever be treated as a life-saving tool for that child and a cover-up for Robert Miller's infidelity. I took the yellowed divorce agreement to a law firm. When Robert Miller proposed to me, he used this agreement, promising me the freedom to leave any time I wished. He also swore that the agreement would never need to be used. His past vows still rang in my ears, but the man who made them had forgotten them. He didn't know that every second he kept me imprisoned at home, waiting for Jasmine to give birth safely, felt like hell to me. He thought that by tearing up the divorce agreement, I would never be able to leave. He removed the security guards who were monitoring me, which ironically made it easier for me to act. After giving my lawyer full power of attorney, I checked into a hotel. 3 days. Just 3 more days, and I could completely escape all of this. But Arthur and Evelyn Miller sent people to abduct me from the hotel and take me to the hospital. Marcus was indeed very sick, his face unnaturally pale. "Sarah, please, we're begging you." Evelyn Miller clutched my sleeve, her voice choked with sobs. "Marcus is only 3 years old." Arthur Miller stood beside her, his face was grim. "Sarah Bennett, if you don't save Marcus, don't blame us for being unpleasant." That was their way of begging. The last shred of pity in my heart vanished instantly. How unpleasant. Arthur Miller took out an envelope from his briefcase and handed it to me. I opened it and felt my blood run cold instantly. They were photos of my sister, Emily Bennett, being assaulted. We heard Emily's depression is just starting to get better. If these photos were to leak out, I wonder if she could handle it? Arthur Miller's voice slithered into my ears like a snake. I snapped my head up, glaring fiercely at Arthur Miller's hypocritical face. "You wouldn't dare. For our grandson, we'd dare do anything." Evelyn Miller wiped away her tears, her tone suddenly turning vicious. "Marcus's surgery must happen tomorrow morning at 8. Otherwise, these photos will appear on all major social platforms." I stumbled back a few steps, leaning against the wall to keep from collapsing. Emily was my only family. After that incident 2 years ago, she had only just begun to recover from the trauma. I turned to look at the silent Robert Miller. "So, you agree with your parents threatening me?" He lowered his head, not daring to look at me, but his words pierced my heart like a sword. "Sarah, if it weren't for saving you, I wouldn't have been injured there, and I wouldn't have gotten involved with Jasmine. This is all cause and effect." "So you're letting your parents threaten me?" I practically screamed. He took a deep breath, his tone indifferent. "Marcus needs your bone marrow. You're the one who caused his relapse with that slap. Consider it atonement, repayment for the favor of me saving you back then." A flimsy excuse, yet he said it as if it were perfectly reasonable. But he was right. I did owe him my life. The next morning, I lay on the operating table expressionless. When the cold needle pierced my spine, I bit down hard on my lip, refusing to cry out. When I woke up from the anesthesia, the room was empty. Only the constant vibration of my mobile phone signaled new messages. I forced myself to pick up the phone. The news headlines that popped up on the screen jolted me awake. Erisa's compromising photos exposed. Ms. Bennett of the Shin family suspected of being sexually assaulted by multiple people. Photos and evidence. I trembled as I clicked the link. The photos were blurred, but anyone familiar with Emily would recognize her instantly. The comments section was full of disgusting insults and speculation. I struggled to get up and find Robert Miller to deal with the scandal, but stopped at the hospital room door. Through the slightly ajar door, Robert Miller was holding Jasmine and coaxing her softly. "Don't be angry. I've already punished her. Marcus almost died because of her. If I let her be a mother to our children, I'm afraid she'll abuse them." Jasmine sobbed, voicing her worries. Robert Miller sighed, saying helplessly, "With her sister around, I can make sure she wouldn't Mistreat our children. Aside from the title of Mrs. Miller, I promise you and the children will get the best. Jasmine turned her head and met my gaze. A triumphant smile played on her lips. She deliberately raised her voice. Then, about her sister's matter, maybe we can just forget about it. No. Sarah needs to feel what it's like, only then will she listen. Besides, her sister's misfortune was her own doing. The man who had once wished to kill those who had bullied my sister now spoke words that sent a chill run through me. Just then, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello, is this Miss Emily Bennett's family? She attempted suicide by cutting her wrists at home and is currently in the emergency room. When I rushed to the hospital next door, the operating room light was still on. The doctor told me my sister had lost too much blood and her condition was very critical. My sister's pale face was streaked with tears. Sister, I'm sorry, I've caused you trouble again. I held her icy hand, and tears fell onto the operating table. I didn't dare tell my sister that I was the one who was sorry. While my sister was still in surgery, Jasmine sent me a text message. If you don't want your sister to attempt suicide again, quickly give up the position of Mrs. Miller. I ignored Jasmine and dialed that number, moved the plan forward. Tonight. The man on the phone simply replied, everything is ready for 3 days from now. Hanging up, I stared at the ceiling, tears streaming down silently. This marriage had finally reached its end. Unsure when I had fallen asleep, I was woken by Robert Miller's frantic voice. He grabbed my wrist and dragged me out. Come to the hospital with me quickly. Marcus's ear is deaf from your slap, and his condition has worsened. I froze, then sneered. What does that have to do with me? Have you no conscience? Robert Miller's eyes were blue. Shot, he's only 3. He finally stabilized his condition with Chloe's cord blood, and now it's worsened because of you. He urgently needs a bone marrow transplant. You're his legal mother, and you're a match. If you don't save him, who will? His legal mother? And a matching donor? I didn't know when he had secretly done the matching test on me, or how many more things he was hiding from me. I forcefully shook off his hand. He's your illegitimate child with someone else. Why should I save him? Robert Miller suppressed his rage, his eyes red as he pleaded with me. As long as you save Marcus, I promise to find a way to satisfy you afterward. Even at this moment, he didn't know why I was angry. He didn't have to love me, he didn't have to touch me, and he could have divorced me. But he shouldn't have betrayed me by wanting it all and humiliating me. Exhaustion and powerlessness washed over me. Ignoring his pleas, I slammed the door shut with all my might. Just then, his phone rang. He answered it, temporarily left me alone, and left in a hurry. But I knew that even if Robert Miller left me alone, Arthur and Evelyn Miller wouldn't. Even if they said they wanted me gone, they still needed me as Mrs. Miller for appearances. In their eyes, Jasmine was merely a tool for childbirth. If I stayed, I would forever be treated as a life-saving tool for that child and a cover-up for Robert Miller's infidelity. I took the yellowed divorce agreement to a law firm. When Robert Miller proposed to me, he used this agreement, promising me the freedom to leave any time I wished. He also swore that the agreement would never need to be used. His past vows still rang in my ears, but the man who made them had long forgotten them. He didn't know that every second he kept me imprisoned at home, waiting for Jasmine to give birth safely, felt like hell to me. He thought that by tearing up the divorce agreement, I would ever be able to leave. He removed the security guards who were monitoring me, which ironically made it easier for me to act. After giving my lawyer full power of attorney, I checked into a hotel. 3 days. Just 3 more days, and I could completely escape all of this. But Arthur and Evelyn Miller sent people to abduct me from the hotel and take me to the hospital. Marcus was indeed very sick, his face unnaturally pale. Sarah, please, we're begging you. Evelyn Miller clutched my sleeve, her voice choked with sobs. Marcus is only 3 years old. Arthur Miller stood beside her, his face was grim. Sarah Bennett, if you don't save Marcus, don't blame us for being unpleasant. That was their way of begging. The last shred of pity in my heart vanished instantly. How unpleasant. Arthur Miller took out an envelope from his briefcase and handed it to me. I opened it and felt my blood run cold instantly. They were photos of my sister, Emily Bennett, being assaulted. We heard Emily's depression is just starting to get better. If these photos were to leak out, I wonder if she could handle it? Arthur Miller's voice slithered into my ears like a snake. I snapped my head up, glaring fiercely at Arthur Miller's hypocritical face. You wouldn't dare. For our grandson, we'd dare do anything. Evelyn Miller wiped away her tears, her tone suddenly turning vicious. Marcus's surgery must happen tomorrow morning at 8. Otherwise, these photos will appear on all major social platforms. I stumbled back a few steps, leaning against the wall to keep from collapsing. Emily was my only family. After that incident 2 years ago, she had only just begun to recover from the trauma. I turned to look at the silent Robert Miller. So, you agree with your parents threatening me? He lowered his head, not daring to look at me, but his words pierced my heart like a sword. Sarah, if it weren't for obeying you, I wouldn't have been injured there, and I wouldn't have gotten involved with Jasmine. This is all cause and effect. So you're letting your parents threaten me? I practically screamed. He took a deep breath, his tone indifferent. Marcus needs your bone marrow. You're the one who caused his relapse with that slap. Consider it atonement, repayment for the favor of me saving you back then. A flimsy excuse, yet he said it as if it were perfectly reasonable. But he was right. I did owe him my life. The next morning, I lay on the operating table expressionless. When the cold needle pierced my spine, I bit down hard on my lip, refusing to cry out. When I woke up from the anesthesia, the room was empty. Only the constant vibration of my mobile phone signaled new messages. I forced myself to pick up the phone. The news headlines that popped up on the screen jolted me awake. Erisa's compromising photos exposed. Ms. Bennett of the Shin family suspected of being sexually assaulted by multiple people. Photos and evidence. I trembled as I clicked the link. The photos were blurred, but anyone familiar with Emily would recognize her instantly. The comments section was full of disgusting insults and speculation. I struggled to get up and find Robert Miller to deal with the scandal, but stopped at the hospital room door. Through the slightly ajar door, Robert Miller was holding Jasmine and coaxing her softly. Don't be angry. I've already punished her. Marcus almost died because of her. If I let her be a mother to our children, I'm afraid she'll abuse them. Jasmine sobbed, voicing her worries. Robert Miller sighed, saying helplessly, with her sister around, I can make sure she wouldn't dare mistreat our children. Aside from the title of Mrs. Miller, I promise you and the children will get the best. Jasmine turned her head and met my gaze. A triumphant smile played on her lips. She deliberately raised her voice, then, about her sister's matter, maybe we can just forget about it. No. Sarah needs to feel what it's like, only then will she listen. Besides, her sister's misfortune was her own doing. The man who had once wished to kill those who had bullied my sister now spoke words that sent a chill run through me. Just then, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello, is this Miss Emily Bennett's family? She attempted suicide by cutting her wrists at home and is currently in the emergency room. I rushed to the hospital next door. The operating room light was still on. The doctor told me my sister had lost too much blood and her condition was very critical. My sister's pale face was streaked with tears. Sister, I'm sorry. I've caused you trouble again. I held her icy hand, and tears fell onto the operating table. I didn't dare tell my sister that I was the one who was sorry. While my sister was still in surgery, Jasmine sent me a text message. If you don't want your sister to attempt suicide again, quickly give up the position of Mrs. Miller. I ignored Jasmine and dialed that number, moved the plan forward. Tonight. Late at night, I released the news that my sister had died. I took her body back to the mansion, placed the dummy I had prepared on the bed, and poured gasoline on it. The moment the flames leaped up, my sister and I left on a private plane. Not far away, a raging fire engulfed the house that had once been my home. The next day, news of my death in the fire was everywhere. Robert Miller, who had been intimate all night with Jasmine, was woken by the barrage of news notifications. Robert Miller stared at the news headlines on his mobile phone screen, a cold smile twisting his lips. Sarah Bennett, when did you learn to pull stunts like this? His long fingers scrolled through the news, his eyes filled with disdain. This fake death act, in his eyes, was nothing more than a clumsy trick by a woman throwing a tantrum. Rob, what is it? Jasmine wrapped her arms around his waist from behind, her soft body pressing against him. Robert Miller handed her his phone. Sarah set the mansion on fire and told the media she killed herself. Jasmine's eyes flashed with triumph after reading the news, but she quickly feigned concern. Rob, Sarah something didn't really happen to her, did it? How could it? Robert Miller scoffed, uncaring. She's just trying to make me feel guilty so she can get rid of you and the kids. All I asked was for her to donate bone marrow, and she's causing such a scene like those petty and jealous women. It's truly lost her dignity as Mrs. Miller. He said this, but a strange sense of unease welled up in his heart. This unease prompted him to grab his jacket and prepare to go home and check. Jasmine quickly grabbed his arm. Rob, where are you going? The doctor said Marcus will wake up soon. You promised him you'd stay with him. If he wakes up and doesn't see his dad, he'll be scared and cry again. Robert Miller hesitated. Marcus's little face on the hospital bed was pale. He did need his presence. He sighed, put down his jacket, and went to the hallway to call me. Once, twice, 3 times. The calls went unanswered. Robert Miller's brows furrowed tighter. In our 5 years of marriage, I had never failed to answer his calls, not even after our most heated arguments. Still sulking? It's just donating bone marrow. Is it really worth all this? Playing hard to get can get old fast. He muttered to himself, trying to convince himself this was just me being willful. He even generously thought that if the mansion burned down, it burned down. He could just buy me a new one. His experience of deceiving me for the past 3 years made him absolutely certain that women were easy to appease. To placate me, he called Hi. S assistant, take down all the photos and news about Emily Bennett online. On the other end of the line, the assistant stammered, Mr. Miller, those photos were taken down yesterday already. Robert Miller was taken aback. Sarah took them down? You're using my money, you should listen to me. Remember, don't let this happen again. This made the assistant even more panicked. He looked at the ruins in front of him, still smelling of acrid smoke, and blurted out, Ms. Bennett attempted suicide yesterday and didn't make it. After the unsuccessful attempt, Sarah took her body back to the mansion. Before the assistant could finish, Robert Miller's mobile phone almost fell to the ground. What did you say? Who didn't make it? The voice on the other end sounded like it was coming from very far away. Robert Miller's ears were ringing. He hung up the phone, his fingers trembling as he scrolled through the news, his face turning pale. Impossible. This is impossible. He suddenly stood up. Just as he was about to leave, Marcus woke up and cried, pulling at his coat, Daddy, don't go. Marcus is scared. Normally, Robert Miller would have picked up the child with heartache. But at this moment, his eyes saw only the fire. He roughly pulled Marcus's small hand away and rushed out of the hospital room, ignoring Jasmine's attempts to stop him. Jasmine chased after him, shouting reluctantly, Rob, where are you going? Marcus needs you. Robert Miller didn't hear her, almost tumbling into the parking lot. His sports car sped through the streets. Robert Miller lost count of how many red lights he ran or how many people cursed at him. All he knew was that he had to get back. He had to go back and save his wife. The journey that usually took half an hour took him only 10 minutes. However, what awaited him was only a scene of ruins. Firefighters were clearing the site, police tapes surrounded the area. Robert Miller ignored the barriers and rushed in, grabbing a firefighter by the shoulder. Where are they? The people inside? The firefighter recognized him and shook his head sadly. Mr. Miller, I'm afraid we only found the bodies of 2 women. The fire was too intense, it was impossible to put out. Robert Miller's already pale face lost all color instantly, becoming almost transparent. He opened his mouth, and after a long pause, a voice came out, but it was hoarse beyond recognition. Can you confirm who they are? Preliminary identification indicates they are Ms. Sarah Bennett and her sister, Ms. Emily Bennett. The bodies have been sent to the forensic center. Mr. Miller, please accept our condolences. Robert Miller's legs gave way, and he fell to his knees before the charred ruins. Impossible! Sarah can't be dead. She promised me we would share life and death together. She wouldn't leave me alone like this. The firefighter didn't know how to comfort him and handed him a warped jewelry box that had been burned. This was found in the hands of the deceased. It might be important. Robert Miller opened the box with trembling hands. Inside were the wedding ring I never took off and a burnt fragment of a photo, our honeymoon picture. Mr. Miller, we found extensive traces of gasoline in the bedroom and living room. The preliminary assessment indicates suicide. The firefighter's words and the blackened wedding ring stabbed into Robert Miller's heart like knives. He simply couldn't accept this result. His eyes were bloodshot, and he frantically shook his head, denying it. Sarah loved me so much. Even if her sister died, she wouldn't have killed herself. Someone must have killed her. He frantically searched his phone and dialed the police. My wife is dead. Find the murderer immediately. She absolutely could not have killed herself. After hanging up, Robert Miller's gaze fell on a safe in the corner of the ruins. It was the only thing that had survived the fire. He stumbled over, entered the code, and opened the safe. Inside was the last letter I had left for him. Robert Miller, by the time you read this letter, Emily and I will have left this world. You said I owed you a life. Today, I've paid you back. I saved your son with my bone marrow, and repaid your kindness with my life. From now on, we owe each other nothing. If there is a next life, may we never meet again. Sarah Bennett. Final words. The letter slipped from Robert Miller's fingers, but he tremblingly picked it up and held it to his chest like a precious treasure. He read it over and over countless times. After confirming it was my handwriting, he knelt in the ruins and broke into loud sobs. Sarah, wife, I saved you willingly. I don't need you to pay me back. I really don't need you to pay me back. I just wanted you to stay by my side forever. How could you leave me without saying a word? The assistant asked him to find a photo of me from before to arrange the funeral. He suddenly remembered something and frantically scrolled through his phone's photo gallery. But he found that he hadn't taken pictures with me in a long time. His album was filled with photos of Jasmine and her children. After searching for a long time, he finally found a photo of us together. It was my birthday that day. I had discovered he lied to me, and we had the most intense argument of our marriage. He had locked me in the house and ordered bodyguards to monitor me 24/7. To make me happy, he had ordered a grand gesture and bought several sets of expensive jewelry to celebrate my birthday. I wore them, standing in the sunlight, smiling, but my eyes were terribly empty. He should have noticed something was wrong then. But he was too confident. He believed I would forgive all his mistakes, out of gratitude for saving my life, and even accept those 2 children who weren't mine. Rain poured down, but Robert Miller knelt there, refusing to get up. Not until the assistant ran up, breathless, with a report. Mr. Miller, the preliminary report from the forensic center is out. The 2 bodies are indeed. Shut up! Robert Miller sharply interrupted him. That's not Sarah. She couldn't possibly be dead. The assistant was frightened by his contorted expression and didn't dare speak again, merely holding the umbrella over him. A night passed, and Robert Miller finally accepted the fact that I was dead. He staggered to his feet, grabbed the assistant by the collar, and spoke word by word, like a demon from hell. Investigate. Find out who killed her. Above the Pacific Ocean, a private plane flew steadily. I gazed at the sea of clouds outside the window and gently held my sister's hand. Sleep, Emily. When you wake up, we'll have new identities, a new life. Sarah, are you really willing to leave your husband? I nodded, pulling the blanket up higher. If he could push you to the brink like that, he's no longer your brother-in-law, nor my husband. The plane landed on a private island. The moment the cabin door opened, the island's sunlight streamed in. Alexander Stone stood against the light, his silhouette tall and straight. He wore a simple white shirt, the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing the faded simple cord on his wrist. He was still wearing the childish cord I had given him when we were young. If I hadn't fallen for Robert Miller at first sight and married into the Miller family against my parents' wishes, I would have been engaged to Alexander Stone. Thinking of this, I didn't dare look at him. "Welcome home, Mrs. Stone." His voice was deeper than I remembered, carrying a hint of restrained tenderness. After 5 years, Alexander Stone's aura was even more imposing, the intensity in his eyes making it hard to look away. His gaze lingered on my sister's bandaged wrist for a moment, and his brow furrowed. "The medical team is ready. We'll give Emily a full examination first." My sister hid timidly behind me. After seeing it was Alexander Stone, she immediately relaxed. Facing Alexander Stone, both my sister and I felt the heavy weight on our hearts lift. He drove us to the hospital himself. While my sister was being examined, he told me, "Robert Miller doesn't believe you killed yourself. He knelt in the ruins for a day and a night." I looked out the window at the vast sea and sky, my voice calm. "It has nothing to do with me." In fact, I had already seen the news on the way to the hospital. The media was reporting on him grieving his beloved wife, devastated, yet no one knew he was the one who forced me to this. His portrayal was truly ironic. But he and I no longer had any connection. The doctor completed my sister's examination and respectfully reported to me, "Ms. Bennett's wounds have been treated very well, there won't be any scarring. But the psychological trauma will take time to heal." Alexander Stone immediately arranged for a therapist to come back to the Stone family estate with us. After my sister fell asleep, Alexander Stone took me to his study. He took a folder from a drawer and handed it to me. "There's something you should know about what happened to Emily back then." I took the folder but didn't dare open it, my fingers trembling uncontrollably. That nightmare 2 years ago was for both my sister and me. That day, I had a last-minute change of plans and couldn't go to meet my friend. My sister went in my place, and as a result, she was attacked by a group of people. If Robert Miller hadn't put Emily's incident online this time, I would have had a hard time finding out that those people were originally targeting you. Someone paid them to ruin you. Even though I already suspected the answer, I couldn't help but ask who it was. It was Jasmine. The name hit me like a heavy hammer. I opened the file. Inside were detailed investigation reports and bank transfer records. After Jasmine got pregnant with Marcus, to ensure she could successfully marry Robert Miller, she paid a group of thugs to ruin me and get me out of the Miller family. Unexpectedly, because I changed my plans at the last minute, those men took the money and, to report back to Jasmine, assaulted my sister instead. Guilt and self-blame overwhelmed me. It was because I loved the wrong man that my sister suffered the tragic fate that should have been mine. At that time, she hadn't even graduated from university. But because of that disaster, she had to drop out, and her promising youth was cut short. And the culprit behind all of this was Robert Miller, the man who claimed to love me. If he had admitted to being intimate with Jasmine, I would have given him my life and left him. It was precisely because he knew I was unyielding that he found ways to deceive me for so many years. And he gave Jasmine the opportunity to hurt my sister and me again and again. I had underestimated her. She had waited for 3 years, until her second child was born, to strike at my sister and me again. Because she knew that with 2 children, the Miller family would unconditionally side with her. I took a deep breath and forced myself to calm down. Did Robert Miller know? He might not have known the details, but he must have suspected something. Otherwise, he wouldn't have suppressed the investigation so quickly back then, preventing me from finding anything useful. I remembered Robert Miller's solemn promise to find the culprits who hurt my sister, only for the matter to be dropped. It turned out he was protecting Jasmine. What was even more ridiculous was that ever since his injury, Robert Miller had only been able to respond physically to Jasmine. It truly fit Jasmine's statement that his body was only interested in hers. Perhaps that was the real reason Robert Miller could abandon me. "What do you plan to do now?" I looked out at the seamless expanse of sea and sky, my voice frighteningly calm. "Those who should pay the price, not one will escape." Alexander Stone's lips curved slightly. He promised to hold our wedding after this matter was settled. That night, I logged into an encrypted email account. Inside were all the evidence I had collected during this time, including not only Robert Miller and Jasmine's records of infidelity but also evidence of the Miller family's tax evasion. Combined with the bank transfer records of Jasmine paying the thugs to hurt my sister, it would be enough to keep her and the Miller family busy. I pressed send, forwarding these documents to several authoritative media outlets in the country. The next day, the headlines of major media outlets were dominated by the Miller Group scandal. Robert Miller's phone was ringing off the hook, and the company's stock plummeted. Meanwhile, a farce was unfolding at the Miller family estate. "Rob, what do we do now?" Jasmine held her daughter, her face full of panic and fear, yet her eyes shone with excitement. "Those reporters are digging into my past, and online users are calling me the murderer who killed Sarah Bennett. Even our children are being called illegitimate children. How can they accuse me like this? In love, the one who isn't loved is the third party. Sarah Bennett and her sister were so psychologically fragile they killed themselves. What does that have to do with us three?" She had no idea that the Miller family was already on the brink of collapse. She didn't mention her own involvement in paying thugs to hurt my sister, fully immersed in the dream of becoming Mrs. Miller. Robert Miller, after hanging up the end phone call, impatiently ripped off his tie. "Shut up. If you hadn't done those stupid things back then, how would we have ended up in this situation? You're yelling at me?" Jasmine didn't argue, crying heartbrokenly. "Didn't I do all that because I love you?" Robert Miller's response was a slap. "Love me? You love me by going after my wife? If Emily hadn't suffered in Sarah's place, I would have killed you with my own hands back then." He finished speaking fiercely, but his heart felt uncontrollably weak. He had actually suspected back then that the person behind it was related to Jasmine, but for the sake of physical pleasure, he disregarded my sister and me. He didn't even have the courage to continue the investigation. Jasmine believed that with me dead, no matter the truth, Robert Miller would belong to her. Her confidence made her stick out her neck, acting arrogant because of her achievements regarding the two children. But Robert Miller was exasperated and started fighting violently with her at the Miller family estate. "Confess. Did you set the fire and kill Sarah? I want revenge for the sisters." If Arthur and Evelyn Miller hadn't intervened, Robert Miller might have beaten Jasmine to death. But even if Jasmine was beaten into the ICU, she couldn't escape being investigated by the police. Even Arthur Miller was sent to prison for orchestrating tax evasion. Suddenly, the entire Miller family was under a dark cloud. Robert Miller had no mind to manage anything. He didn't even have the energy to comfort the two children who cried all day. Every day, he knelt before my grave, watching online users curse him in a self-abusive way, feeling a little better. Not until Alexander Stone and I were married did he hear the news. His first reaction was disbelief, because he knew that Alexander Stone had remained unmarried for me. Now that I was supposedly dead, not only did he not appear, but he suddenly got married. A sense of impossibility swirled frantically in his mind. Thinking of everything the Miller family had gone through recently, Robert Miller was struck as if by lightning. He suddenly thought of something, grabbed his car keys, and rushed out. "Son, can't you at least take care of the children? Where are you going now?" "I'm going to find Sarah. She's definitely not dead." On the helipad of the Stone family's private island, Robert Miller's helicopter was surrounded by security guards. I hadn't expected him to find his way here. He stumbled out of the helicopter, his suit crumpled and sticking to him, his eyes bloodshot. He looked nothing like the confident CEO of the Miller Group he once was. "Sarah! I know you're here!" he roared, his voice hoarse. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window on the second floor of the mansion, watching the man who had once captivated me go insane. Alexander Stone wrapped his arms around my waist from behind, resting his chin lightly on my shoulder. "Want to see him? Since he's found his way here, let's see him. There needs to be closure." I turned and picked up the marriage certificate from the vanity table. Alexander Stone kissed my forehead and accompanied me downstairs. In the garden, Robert Miller froze the moment he saw me. He staggered forward a few steps, then abruptly stopped, as if afraid of startling a phantom. "Sarah, it's really you." He gazed at me with deep affection, as if looking at his most precious treasure. "You're not dead. I knew you weren't dead. This is wonderful. Sarah, come home with me quickly." I cut him off coldly. "Mr. Miller, you've mistaken me for someone else. Sarah Bennett is dead. The person standing before you now is Mrs. Stone. Robert Miller's face turned pale when he saw my hand intertwined with Alexander Stone's. He fell to his knees with a thud, his knees hitting the stone path heavily. Sarah, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Please forgive me, okay? I'm not sure where Mr. Miller gets the nerve to ask for my forgiveness. We settled everything when you almost forced my sister to die. No. Robert Miller shook his head wildly. I love you. I saved your life. You said you'd be with me forever. I wasn't sure if he had seen the note I left, so I repeated myself. My bone marrow saved your illegitimate child, and Emily's life and mine repaid your kindness. Isn't that enough? Robert Miller, we owe each other nothing now. He crawled forward a few steps on his knees, trying to grab my hand, but Alexander Stone kicked him away. Don't touch my wife. Alexander Stone radiated a cold aura, but the hand holding mine was gentle as he shielded me. Robert Miller looked up, his gaze moving from Alexander Stone's arm around my waist to the wedding rings on our ring fingers. His pupils constricted sharply. You really got married? I held up the marriage certificate and showed it to him. Robert Miller yelled hysterically. I don't agree. We're not divorced yet. You'll always be my wife. I took out the copy of the yellow divorce agreement from my bag and reminded him, this is the agreement you signed yourself, saying I could leave whenever I wanted. Robert Miller never expected that I would keep this agreement as my tool for final escape from him. He took the paper with trembling hands, large tears splashing down. Sarah, about Jasmine, I can explain. It's not what you think. He tried to explain, but then remembered the text messages from Jasmine challenging me, which I had published online. Looking at the man who had once taken a knife for me, I couldn't understand how he had ended up like this. Back then, his eyes were only for me. Even if he was impotent his entire life, I wouldn't have looked down on him. But he had sought out Jasmine to be his cure. I could understand his choice, but I couldn't accept his deceit and wanting it all. My cold laugh stung Robert Miller's heart. He choked back tears, pleading with me, just as sincerely as when I first caught him with Jasmine. Sarah, I really know I was wrong. I regret it. Every day I've been living in pain, unable to sleep or eat. Please give me another chance. He had probably forgotten how I had endured those days of sleepless nights and loss of appetite. Robert Miller, please stop disgusting me. How many chances did I give you? And how did you treat me? When you were in bed with Jasmine, did you think about giving me a chance? When you allowed her to hurt Emily, did you think about giving me a chance? When you forced me to donate bone marrow to your illegitimate child, did you think about giving me a chance? With each question, Robert Miller's face turned a shade paler. He opened his mouth, but couldn't utter a sound. Robert Miller, you never loved me. You only loved how good I was to you, loved having someone unconditionally tolerate your selfishness. No, I love you. I really do. I just couldn't control my body. Enough. Alexander Stone sharply interrupted him. Don't use that excuse to sicken people. Robert Miller suddenly looked up, his eyes blazing with hatred. It's you. You stole Sarah. He suddenly lunged, attacking Alexander Stone. Alexander Stone sneered, easily dodging his attack and countering with a punch to his face. Robert Miller stumbled back, and before he could regain his footing, he was kicked to the ground again. Alexander Stone grabbed his collar, punching him repeatedly. That punch is for Emily. That punch is for Sarah. Robert Miller lay on the ground, blood streaming from his nose, still muttering, Sarah is mine, she's my wife. She was never yours. Alexander Stone released his grip, wiping the blood off his hands in disgust. From the moment you betrayed her, you lost her forever. Security guards stepped forward and lifted the barely conscious Robert Miller. Before being dragged away, he suddenly struggled to raise his head, looking at me with hopeful eyes. Sarah, do you really not love me anymore? I gently shook my head, my eyes filled only with revulsion. The light in Robert Miller's eyes was extinguished completely. 3 months later, news broke that the Miller Group had gone bankrupt. Jasmine and Arthur Miller were sentenced one after another. Robert Miller didn't care about the 2 children. He spent his days either drinking or getting into fights, leaving Evelyn Miller and the children living on the streets without a second thought. Hearing he was beaten into a cripple, needing a catheter for life, I only saw it as a joke. In contrast, Alexander Stone, using my pregnancy as an occasion, held another lavish wedding, announcing to the world that I was his wife. On the wedding day, my sister was a bridesmaid, smiling especially brightly. I clasped Alexander Stone's hand and exchanged a look with him, everything understood without words.